Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad that you could be with us today for a very special presentation and dialogue with my dear colleagues at Abercrombie and Kent. I'm really thrilled to be joined by Kim Guimaraes, who's on the executive team, the leadership team here in the US, and also by someone abroad, a friend abroad, Gerald Hatherly, who's the executive director of Abercrombie and Kent Asia. So we're so fortunate to have two leaders in the company providing perspective both on how A&K is approaching the present time globally, truly globally, but also their unique individual perspectives being here in the US and really having a pulse on what's going on uh, corporately and with all the different DMCs and different lines of business that A&K operates, but also then having someone really on the front lines. And I couldn't think of anyone better, so I'm so happy Gerald's here because he's been through everything from the highs of the Beijing Olympics to the lows of H1N1 and the present day. So
and SARS and
yeah, exactly. So thanks again so much for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Kim.
Oh,
thank you.
fantastic. Thank you, Kareem. Really appreciate the opportunity to get together with you and your guests. We have such a wonderful partnership with Culture Traveler, and so appreciate you and your clients and all you do to support the partnership and the work that you're doing to guide them through these unprecedented times. So, Kareem and I were chatting, and he thought that this might be a great time for us to share with you folks, how A&K has been addressing the current events that have happened in the world, and really kind of what we think the future will look like for luxury travelers, and specifically the A&K client forward. Talking about this particular topic, we thought it was good that we talked about a little bit about, why A&K is the right choice for travelers, especially now at this time of the year. And one of the things that I had shared with Kareem that I feel so fortunate is that I am with a company that's been in business since 1962, which means that we have helped both our travel partners and our clients navigate challenging times before. Kareem mentioned a few of those at the beginning of the presentation. So we have a deep history in being able to understand what travelers need, and anticipate what might happen in the world. The beautiful thing as well is that because we are considered a local company in so many places that we operate, and we have our own staff and teams on the ground there, we are able to adapt and move quickly and make adjustments on the ground very quickly. And we've got incredibly deep roots in operations and logistics. So we have more than 55 local offices around the world that have connections with local embassies, tourist boards, to seamlessly make changes on the spot and address our clients' needs, always with our clients' safety in mind first, and doing the right thing by the client, no matter what that means, or matter what the cost might be at that time. So we've really been the leaders in luxury travel and private customized experiences, which I think is really an important consideration as we move forward now. And our clients always have access to the A&K team 24/7, meaning no matter where in the world you are, and I know culture travelers like to go to some of the farthest corners of the world to experience new things, that you'll be taken care of. You're never going to be alone. As I mentioned, we have more than 55 local offices now. So we grew from those humble beginnings in Nairobi, Kenya, just outside Nairobi in 1962. And having those 55 offices is not braggadocious. That's just an important factor for you as a traveler to know that although we have the power behind us of a globally recognized brand, we have those local connections. So this just gives you a nice visual footprint of where we are in the world. That means A&K is actually the company delivering the ground services to you when you're traveling. And I think at times like this, it's important to know that, because that means that we have control over the experience. It also means that we have long established health and safety standards that our 55 offices around the globe are tasked with maintaining. But we've now taken those a step further. I'm not going to go into the details on all of those because Gerald's going to share with you some of the details and how it relates to his region. But know that we are probably the only company that can ensure travelers consistent standards around the world, because these are the standards that you're seeing on your screen that we've worked in tandem with those offices to really step up during this particular time. So everyone will need to adhere to these, which again, I think for travelers, those are really important consideration moving forward. And I always say one of the most important things when you're traveling with A&K is our people. The fact that they are typically A&K employees, that when you step foot off an airplane in no matter what country you're in, and you see the yellow sign and the navy blue ampersand, you get to breathe a sigh of relief and know that you are in vehicles that have been vetted by A&K, that you are in the care of that A&K guide who knows the local community and has his finger on the pulse, that those vehicles have been sanitized, that we only work with the finest hotels. So it really gives you the opportunity to breathe that sigh of relief and know that you're going to be in what we like to call the A&K cocoon, that we've got you covered and taken care of, and that we'll be watching, as we go along and taking care of you. So we wanted to talk just a quick minute about navigating right now and how things have unfolded during this COVID-19 pandemic that we've been faced with. And I will tell you that we worked very closely with Gerald and his team initially at the outset as things were developing in China, and we made decisions to change and postpone trips there and perhaps move folks to other destinations. Another advantage of working with us is that if something is happening regionally, we can take our clients to other areas of the world. As this unfolded and became more of a global event, rather than look at things regionally, we made a concerted effort to work together as a global team. And we made the decision to suspend ground operations for April and May. And the most important thing for us was getting clients home. So when when American travelers were ordered to come home from Europe, we instantly jumped into action. And from Morocco, we got the last 4 seats on a flight out of Morocco. We chartered aircraft from South America to get folks home from there. And then once we knew everyone was home and settled is when we started thinking about, now how do we address travel moving forward? What do we put in place? How do we develop our product? How do we make sure our guests feel safe? And we've been working on those steps and continue to work on those steps for you right now as you're traveling. One of the things that we've developed is that if you are looking to plan travel moving forward, right now we are offering our Book with Confidence program. And I think this is really important because it gives guests the peace of mind. You can book a destination with us, and if you need to cancel or change that destination, postpone to another time due to a COVID-19 related issue, whether that's your home or where you're traveling, you have the ability to do that with a 30-day notice, and you will have full credit for your trip on file, ready to use with us through December of 2022 to any destination that you like. So very, very flexible. And with that, what we thought we would do is really dive deep into how we're adjusting product and recommending travel experiences for clients in post-COVID-19 in Asia, where we have this incredible experience, and someone like Gerald Hatherly, who's been a China expert, recognized by Condé Nast for 17 years, and his team and folks there leading the charge there. So with that, I'll turn it over to my good friend, Gerald.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Kareem, and thank you for the people who are listening in. Um, I just wanted to discuss the evening. Kim, if we could go to the next slide, please. Oh, okay. I think Kim has brought this up very eloquently. I think one of the hallmarks of A&K, and I, just by a really quick introduction, I've been with Abercrombie and Kent for, this is my 35th year, all in China and Northeast Asia. And the one thing, when I started with A&K in Hong Kong, we had 4 people in our office. And today, prior to the outbreak of COVID, we actually have 7 offices on the ground in China with a total of about 80 full-time employees in the offices. And we also have a wonderful team of guides throughout China. And 2 years ago, after working 30 years in Japan, we opened our own on-site operations in Tokyo. So as Kim said, we have 55 offices around the world. I know it's a wonderful organization, but I'd like to speak to our region. We've grown from 4 people to this, a total to, close to 100 with Japan. And it makes such a difference. And in, this time of crisis with the COVID, being on the ground, being on site allows us to really react in real time. So, the current situation, we'll jump to COVID right now. We were among the first areas hit because of, the information coming out of Wuhan. As early as I remember, actually in December, I remember being told by Chinese friends, there's this strange sort of flu or influenza in China. And, by January, we realized that this was, quite serious. Now, I think Kim did mention, we've been through this not once, not twice. This is our 3rd time in a medical, crisis situation. In 2003, we experienced SARS. In 2009, we experienced the H1N1 swine flu breakout. So we have not, this is unprecedented though, because COVID-19 is much bigger in scale, it's now global. But we have had these protocols in place since, SARS. So in Hong Kong, for instance, when this news became, clear to everyone, everyone put on face masks. It's not a political issue here. It is something we have to live with. And I will tell you, what has been so effective about face masks. I'm in touch almost daily with a doctor in Hong Kong, and he told me because we put on our face masks in January, our flu season became the shortest on record. And because we sit on the border with China, we were, face front with this outbreak. Yet to date, we've only had 9 deaths due to COVID-19. And he attributes that to first and foremost to the wearing of face masks. In addition, throughout this region, we also follow the other protocols like physical distancing or social distancing. But even more important is the testing and tracing. And that really, we have to give full credit to South Korea. They were hit very quickly in the first few weeks of the outbreak in Korea. They went from a couple of cases, and in 10 days, they were up to over 8,000 cases because they had this incredible outbreak in 2 churches in Daegu in South Korea. But the government went into immediate action. They're the ones who formulated these drive-through or mobile testing centers. From that 8,000 cases in the first week in early February, today, I just checked the dashboard today, they are at 12,000. So they have really, controlled the management. And that goes for the other countries in our region. We may have issues with China in terms of their lack of transparency in the initial stages of the outbreak, but China, again, I look at work on the dashboard every day. They are still at, just 8 to 10 new cases a day because they have this incredible, again, tracing and mitigation teams in the major cities. Taiwan really is probably by terms of percent of population, the most successful country in the world. They've recorded 3 deaths, 451 cases, and today there are only 3 people left in hospital. Macau, which sits close to us in Hong Kong, again, they've had no more than 50 cases. Singapore, which again showed remarkable resiliency because they've been hit 3 times by COVID. The last started in May when they had an outbreak in their migrant labor dormitories. And they quickly went from 100 cases up to, I think they're at 47,000, but with only 29 deaths. So I think this speaks to a very robust public health system throughout the countries of Northeast Asia. Strong government leadership and intervention and putting plans in place. And as a company, then, maybe we can go, thank you. So We have, during these months of, the COVID outbreak, we have been looking at our, programs in each of the countries we work in and what we need to do for the future. And so we have mandated that going forward, all our guides, and I must stress again, our guides, as Kim mentioned, they're not freelance. They are full-time employees with A&K. So they will be tested for coronavirus. All the drivers and the vehicles come under our direct control. So we have instituted, real checks, not just these, perfunctory tests, but, through the week we will have inspections. The vehicles will be disinfected on a regular basis. And every traveler who comes to any of the countries in our region will be given medical grade masks, each day, hand sanitizer, gloves if they choose they want to wear gloves. And most important, being on site and being open 24/7, we are able to react in real time very quickly. So we are planning our itineraries so that your travelers will not go to a site where it may be overcrowded with people. Um, so I think this gives us the advantage. And as I say, we've lived through this. We have very good contacts within the medical community throughout the countries we work in. So with that, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what we're looking at in the countries we work in, things you might want to think of. And I do think that we are among the first to emerge from the COVID-19 outbreak. We were encouraged initially in late May and early June. There was talk of a regional travel bubble between Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Vietnam. Even though our numbers are good and people are, excited about it, we are still being very cautious. The travel bubble is still being discussed. It looks like it'll be September before it goes forward, but that will be a good test case for international travel. And I should add, one of the requirements of the travel bubble and for future international travel will be all travelers traveling within Northeast Asia will be required to have a COVID-19 test taken within 72 hours of departure. If you have a negative test, then you'll be able to enter our countries and not mandated by any quarantine. And I think that that will apply to the EU and other countries. That seems to be the guidelines that they're taking. And so we are excited and hopeful that in September we'll at least get regional travel up. And it looks like for 2021, international travel will be able to return to this part of the world. So quickly, in Japan, as I said, 2 years ago, we opened our true on-site office. We have been working in Japan for the past 30 years, but because of the increase in travel interest to Japan from the United States, we now have a wonderful team, full-time staff of 12 on the ground in Tokyo. And I mentioned we have a great group of guides. And one of the among the duties I have, I do weekly training of our guides in Japan by Skype. And with Japan, what we're excited about, and I think all the countries going forward, I think people want to get out of the big cities to the countryside and new experiences. And a couple of the themes we're working on Japan, one is art. Japan has this incredible tradition of both traditional, but it also has great innovative contemporary art. And one of the regions of Japan we work extensively in are a group of islands called Naoshima in the inland sea between the island of Honshu and Shikoku. Naoshima is actually 3 islands, Naoshima, Tashima, and Inojima. And here, this is not just contemporary Japanese art, it has become this sort of epicenter for international contemporary art. And, we work very closely with our specialists on the ground in Naoshima. And I think, if you've been to Japan before, you might not have been to Naoshima, and this is a place to keep in mind. And the other thing that's so exciting about Japan, Tokyo has a movement called Team Lab. It's actually a group of filmmakers and IT specialists. I'm sorry, can we go back to that slide? Yeah. This is very special because Japan's leading this integration of filmmaking and technology to create virtual art, where you as the visitor actually become part of the art experience, this interactive experience. So they now have 2 sites in Tokyo, and I was told that this will, they're going to open in Los Angeles too. It was, I think, supposed to be this year, but probably because of the COVID situation, it'll be delayed till next year. So art is an area we're looking at. I'm sorry, thank you, Kim. Next slide. And even though I talked about we want to take you off the beaten path, which I'll talk about in a minute, we're all very, very stick to the truism that you begin in Tokyo and you should end in Kyoto. And even if you've been to Japan before, I think this is very important. Tokyo represents all the innovation of modern Japan, but Kyoto remains this incredible cultural cradle, historic cradle, having been the capital of Japan from the 9th century through the late 19th century. So it is this great repository of traditional culture. But as a company, what we want to do is, take you away from the superficial. We're very fortunate that we have a wonderful contact in Japan, a man named Alex Kerr, who's considered the greatest expert on Japanese culture who's not Japanese. He lives just outside of Kyoto. He organizes for A&K behind the scenes architectural tours of Kyoto because he's a specialist in restoration. So he takes you to temples that tourists never go to. He takes you to Zen gardens that tourists don't see. And most importantly, he has a wonderful connection to the world of geisha. So we can take you behind the scenes. He'll organize a private evening where you can meet a geiko and a meiko, which are a senior and apprentice geisha, and to talk about their experiences. And I mean, in 2020, it's very interesting to see that the world of geishas is not declining. It's still quite healthy. And he will explain why young women, especially from the countryside, still elect to become geisha. So Kyoto is a integral part of our programs in Japan. And sorry, the next slide can we advance to the next one? Oh, okay. So I talked about off the beaten path. So going forward in all the countries, we're looking at destinations outside of big cities where you can get a lot of nature, free of the crowds. And in Japan, there are a couple, actually a few areas that we're working in. One is Shirakawa-go, which is a group of samurai villages located in the Japanese Alps between Tokyo, which is on the east coast on the Pacific Ocean, and Kanazawa on the Sea of Japan in the west. Between those two cities is a wonderful region of these UNESCO World Heritage Villages. They date from the 16th century, and not only do they preserve, architecture found nowhere else in the country, they also retain a very traditional rural lifestyle. So this has become an integral part of programs outside of the cities. And the other thing that is new to Japan that we have started working with is a boat called the Gun-2. The Gun-2 is the world's only floating ryokan. It sails in the inland sea between Shikoku and Honshu. And this gives you this incredible service tradition on the water. The other area that we're very interested in is Iseshima. Iseshima is a peninsula south of Nagoya, and it is the home of the Ama. The Ama are a unique group of female pearl divers. There are only 800 Ama left in the world. And we have access to take you to an Ama village where you will have lunch in a traditional fishing hut. Then they'll take you out on the water to demonstrate their diving skills. The Ama are these women that can dive down to 30 feet and hold their breath for over an hour. And the other region that's gaining a lot of attention is Hokkaido in the north. I think you're aware in the States that Hokkaido's become a real winter destination for skiers, snowboarders. There are several good resorts in Hokkaido. Niseko has, on average, 50 feet of fresh powder snow in the world. So it's actually the most reliable snowfall found anywhere on Earth. And before we leave Japan, I just wanted to tell you about a program we run during the months of January, February, and March out of Tokyo to Nagano to go up to see the snow monkeys. These are these macaques that have developed this very interesting ability to come down during the coldest months and spend those months in the hot volcanic hot springs. So moving along, after Japan, South Korea, and I did mention that South Korea, was this really tremendous success story with COVID. For us, it is, I think, the next big destination in Northeast Asia. There is, of course, a lot of interest and knowledge about Korea in the States, but really, as a travel destination, it's still a bit underappreciated. Seoul, your gateway city, has become the pop cultural capital of Asia. I think you're aware of the film Parasite, which won the Best Picture and Best Director at the recent 2020 Oscars. Has put Seoul on the map of filmmaking. It's one of the great filmmaking television program centers for Asia. It's also got a very vibrant music industry. In fact, contemporary pop music, the group BTS is now the world's biggest selling in terms of album sales of any group on earth. Their most recent release went directly to #1 in the States, and they have sellout concerts around the world. So Seoul is this very happening city, but at the same time, it retains this very rich culture. There's a lot of great art, food, and Seoul. But for American travelers, of course, we do like to bring people to the DMZ. I just wanted to remind you that visits to the DMZ there are no private arrangements. You must go in a group, and we can arrange the groups for you. And there are two ways to see the DMZ. You can take what is called a standard tour. We always try to arrange and recommend that you do another tour to the GSA, which is the Joint Security Area, where the U.S., North and South Korea meet when they have negotiations about border issues, and we're allowed to take people to the JSA. So for any American travelers who go to South Korea, I think it's very important to include an extra day in Seoul to go to the DMZ, because it will take the greater part of a day to do the actual trip. Thank you. Next slide. And outside of Seoul, what we're very interested in is the city of Gwangju. This is just 2.5 hours by high-speed train from Seoul. Gyeongju is the cultural and historic cradle of Korean civilization. It served as the capital for over 1,000 years of a period called the Silla dynasty, from the 1st century BC to the 10th century AD. It is this incredible repository of great Buddhist culture, the best museum in Korea, and a lot of interesting archaeological sites. It's really the roots of Korean culture. And as I say, Korea's got a wonderful high-speed network of high-speed rail, easy to get around, a good highway system. And then just beyond Gyeongju, just 1 hour to the south, is the city of Busan. Busan is actually Korea's most popular or most visited city. It even surpasses Seoul. It is a vibrant seaport. It's a major port of call on international cruises that cover Korea and Japan. It is home to the world's 2nd largest film festival. The Busan Film Festival now is the 2nd biggest in the world. It's got Buddhist culture, great contemporary art, wonderful seafood, and it's another sort of a way to look at Korea outside of Seoul. And for the really adventurous, and again, in our pursuit of this beyond the cities, is the island of Jeju, which lies off the southern tip of the Korean peninsula. You can access Jeju by flight. It's a 30-minute flight from Busan. And this is for people who want to get away from everything and hike. Jeju has incredible volcanic rock formations. It's got a mountain, Mount Hale, which is about 6,500 feet in height. It's got great hiking trails. It's got some of the most beautiful wildflowers in Asia. It is very much a Korean destination. Not many foreigners go to Jeju yet, but we feel it's the way to go. And just a quick reminder, South Korea is a country for all seasons. It has cherry blossoms that rival Japan, but doesn't have the crowds. It's got incredible fall foliage. And like Japan, it's become a great winter destination. 2nd best skiing after Japan is in South Korea. And as you know, in 2018, they hosted the Winter Olympics. So now I do want to talk about China, and I did mention the lack of transparency. And as someone who has studied many years in China and travels and lived there, I also understand there's a great political pushback between the US and China, but I think we'd be remiss not to recommend it, for the future of travel, because I think there will be no other country in the post-COVID period that will have these incredible regions outside of the major cities. The west and northwest of China, which we refer to as the Silk Road, has got incredible mountains and desert, a wealth of history. Sorry, next slide. Tibet is, to us, for me, it's the most important destination, sorely misunderstood in the West. It has opened up. The Chinese, in spite of all the political issues, have put in an incredible infrastructure in terms of roads, better hotels, access to regions outside of Lhasa. But if you want to see a culture rich in Buddhist tradition and incredible history and some of the most beautiful landscapes on earth, you must visit Tibet. We have the ability to organize. We do sometimes these motorcycle trips we call Across the Roof of the World. This is Zhangjiajie. Zhangjiajie is now the fastest growing destination for Chinese domestic travelers. And it's all because of a movie called Avatar. James Cameron, when he created the world of Pandora, actually went to Hunan to see these mountains. And because of the movie, The Chinese discovered this region, and it is incredible. It's got all these limestone pinnacles, the world's longest glass-covered bridge, the world's longest glass-covered walkway. So it's become a very important center for active tourism in China. And before we leave China, of course, the Great Wall. At A&K, Kim mentioned we have all this insider access. We're able to create many Great Wall experiences, one of which is we can light up the wall at night and organize a dinner on top of the wall. And I think that makes the greatest wall experience. And then moving from China, before we leave China, excuse me, I also think that, as someone who really has traveled China, the most important thing about China are its people. I think we're under the misimpression that China is a very homogenous culture. It isn't. There are 56 very distinct ethnic cultures, and these cultures live off the beaten path in China, on the Silk Road, in Tibet, in Southwest China. And with this great infrastructure, these are the places you need to see and where A&K can take you. I'm from, I've lived in Hong Kong for 30 years. We also want to focus on Hong Kong because we think there's also a lot of untapped Hong Kong that people don't ever see, and we want to show you. Next slide. Just outside the city, you've got some incredible nature parks. This is Lion Rock. This is literally just minutes from Kowloon, but you get these incredible views from this rock. We also have, next slide is the Hong Kong Geopark, which is one of the largest 150 square kilometers of incredible volcanic rock formations. This is also a UNESCO World Site now. We have 22 green belts or nature parks, hundreds of miles of walking trails. Hong Kong has some of the best hiking. So beyond just the glitz and good food, Hong Kong is great for hiking. We also have 230 islands, of which Lantau is the one I would recommend. It has 3 of the most unique sites in Hong Kong, the world's biggest bronze Buddha. It is the only place on Earth that you can see oceanic pink dolphins. And we have an up-and-coming new UNESCO site called Tai O, which is the last of the traditional stilted fishing villages in Hong Kong. So we have all this wonderful nature and culture that people never see. Of course, being a major urban center, we have some of the most innovative contemporary as well as classical Chinese architecture. And we like to organize specialist tours led by architects. And sorry, next, Singapore. I mean, we also work in Singapore and Malaysia. Singapore is another, great success story in COVID because they battled 3 waves. It is has Hong Kong, the world's most robust public health system. It's one of the great financial centers of Asia, and it's got this wonderful trifecta of Malay, Chinese, and Indian cultures, great food, wonderful colonial architecture. And the Singaporean government is always innovating with tourism, whether it's Gardens by the Bay, these unique biospheres, the wonderful mixed cultural heritage of Little India, Arab Street, Chinatown, and Sentosa Island that's becoming, the staycation getaway resort for Singaporeans and visitors from abroad. And I did mention, just as another scene, we've got wonderful colonial architecture. We work with a group of heritage guides in Singapore that can take you on the black and white tour to see these British colonial villas that are in black and white. Great food culture to go to Newton Circus and get all this wonderful mixture of Asian cuisines. And I think I'm going to close with Malaysia, which is my recommendation as the next great post-COVID-19 destination for American travelers. Malaysia is sorely underappreciated in the States. It is this wonderful country of 2 very distinct regions. West Malaysia is the peninsula with KL or Kuala Lumpur as its capital. It has this great British colonial heritage, the wonderful Cameron Highlands, the tea-growing regions. But then you fly over to East Malaysia on the island of Borneo. You've got Sabah and Sarawak, which has the best wildlife viewing in all of Asia. Surpasses India. This, you can see, this is the home of the orangutan, Asia's great ape. It's the home to the smallest species of elephant in the world, the Borneo pygmy elephant. Incredible bird life, like 10 different species of hornbill, and you get to see these wonderful eco lodges. And Malaysia is home to the healthiest coral reef. It's part of the Indonesia-Malaysia, this great pan-Pacific reef culture, the healthiest, most abundant marine life, beautiful resorts. And I mentioned briefly the Cameron Highlands on the peninsula. former British hill station, a wonderful place to escape to. And I think with that, also great architecture on the island of Penang and in KL. The E&O hotel that's featured here was built at the same time as Raffles. And of course, it's the people of Malaysia, all these different Chinese, Malay, Indian cultures to welcome you. So with that, I thank you for allowing us to step in and take a bit of your time.
Thank you, Gerald. I'm really so impressed and enlightened. Malaysia was totally off
Well,
of off of my radar. So, Kim, let's take it back
yeah.
to you because we have no lack of desire to travel and even more inspiration thanks to Gerald. So, where do we go from here?
So great question, Kareem and Gerald. Thank you. I just the images from your region are just so inspiring, and I really
Well,
truly
you got to
can't wait
come.
to get there myself one of these days soon, and to some of these off the beaten path places. And
Yes.
speaking of that, as you said, Kareem, we too are seeing no lack of desire from our clients. In fact, we've got clients that are still holding on, hoping to get to places, this fall. So, with that said, we are now taking a country by country approach at A&K as to determining when we can operate and where we can operate. But we most certainly, as Gerald had said, are looking at the way that our clients are traveling and making adjustments there. So, as he talked about those wide open spaces in Asia, we're also seeing and putting a focus on countrysides of Ireland and Scotland, for instance, getting folks out to, Patagonia. We are expanding our villas program. We're definitely seeing increased interest in, as families are spending all this quality time together and wanting to remain kind of in their family bubble, if you will. We're getting great interest in our villas all throughout Europe, which we have in Italy, Greece, France, Portugal. Great opportunities there. I mean, and you can do a family of 6 can actually get into a villa in Greece with an ocean view and a pool for, around $5,000 a week. Of course, we go up to $75,000 a week, depending on the size of your group and what you're looking for. But it's a really great way to, we can bring private chefs in. We can create programs for the children, arts and crafts programs. We can take you out on day trips in your private vehicles. So it's still a really wonderful way to travel, but ensure that you're a bit insulated, if you will. We've also seen a great increase in our getting the word out on our European barge experiences, which can accommodate anywhere from 6 to 20 guests. And we do barging in Italy and, of course, France. Everyone thinks about barging in France and, going, and we do Burgundy and, the south of France. And what a great way to see these little villages. You can charter it and be with your own private group and go out and do wine tastings and cooking classes, or have those on board, eat incredible food, but yet have your own private space to retreat to, which is always nice. And then we're also seeing an increase in interest in our Wings Over the World program, which we do Wings Over Greece and Turkey is a new one. Greece has managed this incredibly well. And if you think about being able to, on a private jet with just 12 people, get into Ephesus in the morning, spend the day, and out that same day, it's incredible. One of the nice things about this is avoiding the commercial airports. And we offer wings programs all over the world, including Africa and
Asia.
Europe, Spain, Morocco, Asia, India. So it's a great way to do it and not be beholden to commercial schedules, to have more time on the ground and not be in those commercial air terminals. But I think we can all agree. So that, I think, is our moving forward into 2021. But I think no matter where you are in the world, whether you are someone who lives in Europe or you live in Asia, live in the US, Gerald mentioned, travel bubbles. And that's really, I think we all know that domestic travel is where we're comfortable and where folks feel comfortable traveling right now. So we're very fortunate that we have our USA office that you, of course, uh, have worked with and have access to. And we've got folks with over 30 years of connections at the national parks. And, we have always, A&K, been perfectly suited to taking folks to places before they open, after they're closed, away from the crowds. In the Grand Canyon, we have our own private viewing area that we take our guests to. So you're not at the rim of the canyon with 100 other people. So we're certainly well positioned to do that. And as families, again, we're seeing a lot of multi-generation trips taking place. And we even can arrange self-drive programs for folks. So for instance, we do Route 66 from Chicago to the Santa Monica Pier in LA, and plan the entire journey. And folks can either drive themselves in their own vehicle if that's what they're comfortable with, or we have car and driver, including these incredible, RV motorhomes, well suited to the rock star lifestyle, if you will. Great properties like the farmhouse in Sonoma or the Amman property, private entrances, maybe standalone buildings for families, and then yacht charters. So this is what we're seeing tremendous interest in right now as folks look, to satisfy their travel desires and the need to get out and explore right now in 2020. And then those other products that I talked about are really well set for moving into 2021 and traveling internationally as soon as we're able to.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we're going to open it up to some questions. I received some queries in advance, though, so I'll start, and then we'll see if we still have more further information we can
Great.
get while we have both of you here. But maybe the first question should be, when do we start planning? I mean, it's a moving target. We know that availabilities are going to be even more scarce next year with people having to move to next year, but we still don't know what's open. So when do we start planning?
I think I can certainly share with you, Kareem, that I would not delay. As soon as folks have that desire in their heart to travel, and there are destinations that they're interested in, I would encourage folks to connect with you now. We certainly are, as you mentioned, you've got travelers that were planning to travel in 2020 that have now moved to 2021, layered on top of those that were already planning 2021. And if you think about the desire for a lot of folks to stay in those boutique properties, or the best camps in Africa, for instance, that typically are smaller, that may only have 8 to 12 rooms or tents available, we're seeing in the peak seasons already some challenges with availability. So I would certainly encourage people, if they have it in their heart to travel, to plan now and understand that we're giving them that flexibility to change if there is a COVID-related issue that would impact their travel. So I think knowing that you've got the flexibility, you're not risking anything by getting those plans made now, because we'll work with you if changes are necessary.
Great, great. And then what's the best way to stay on top of the ever-changing news? So
Mm.
obviously, I know our travelers, they know me. We're all getting hundreds of email updates a day.
Yes.
So how do we know what's reopening, when it's reopening, if there's been a flare of cases? How do we wrap our
Well,
arms around that?
I think I've mentioned this to Kim, that our DMC network around the world is in the midst of building a COVID-19 travel dashboard. So each DMC will provide, it's a template of updates on, when we think things are going to open, what will hotels be like, what are the travel requirements to enter the country, what are the things you need to be aware of. And this is being built in real time now, and hopefully it's going to come online next week. And Kareem, I'm sure you'll be able to have access to this, that you can share the
Great.
information with your clients. But it's one of the things we're very, engaged in right now because we feel that, as Kim said, everything is so fluid right now. You hear something is going to open and then it doesn't open. So we really want to, collect all this information into one sort of easy, easy to access website. So, and as I say, this will be constantly updated, and it'll be a one-stop place to get your information through, if you're traveling with A&K, when to go, where to go, when, and what are the things, the requirements, the protocols.
Great.
And I think I would add onto that, Gerald, that's perfect. So we're making it easy, for our travel partners like Kareem to know that. And I think it's important, Kareem, too, for your guests to know that although a country may open
Right.
and be available for travel, there are A&K standards that need to be met in order for us to proceed with taking guests there, which for example, we need to know that there is consistent airlift available in and out of the country. We need to know that that country will not impose a quarantine.
Yeah.
And we need to have reassurance from Gerald and our colleagues around the world that all of those health standards we talked about are indeed being met and can be executed, and that with all of those things given, we can deliver the type of A&K experience that our guests have come to expect.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's very important, Kim, because, as you say, things may open, but they may not be of the standard. And also, we want to ensure that, you have the best access to healthcare in those countries in the event of some sort of emergency. And
yeah,
that is very, very important.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much to you both. I've been monitoring the chat, and I think you've done such a good job with your presentation that unless anyone jumps in right now, you've at least answered all the immediate questions. So,
well, Kareem,
I do have a question.
Yes.
Oh, great. Jump in, Fritz.
Hi. Just a year ago, Kareem and a group of friends and I were on a fabulous Abercrombie and Kent trip in Kenya and Uganda. So we've been reminiscing a lot and thinking about our friends in Africa. We started in Nairobi and then went into Uganda to visit the gorillas. It was a marvelous trip. I have a question for both Kim and Gerard. Kim, with your insights around the world, are there, as we've all discussed, they're getting different news every day. Yesterday we heard that Greece was perhaps opening to Americans later in the summer. What are your feelings about when different regions will be opening, or is it just too fluid to speculate on?
Thank you, Fritz. Well, like we said, it's really too fluid to speculate on when, specifically. As I said, although the criteria that we talked about need to be met, but it's not, but what we can share is because we have our teams on the ground, keeping us informed, and we're developing the tool that Gerald talked about. We can assure you that, so for instance, we know that Greece has done an incredible job in managing this, as has Portugal. So we know that as far as Europe travel, those are two areas that we would feel very comfortable and do feel that we can, take our guests to as soon as we're able to provide it. So absolutely that. And the team at Cultural Traveler will have access to the document for our global destinations. So we're talking the entire globe, that will be updated regularly, almost daily for some destinations. So we'll have access to that. As far as Africa, we're definitely, I hear you, and I'm so looking forward to getting tourism, headed back to Africa, because not only is it just important for, because it's such a soul stirring destination, but for the guides, the families, for conservation efforts to keep the animals safe that we all look forward to going to see, and the protection of those animals. It's important that we have tourism and tourist dollars flowing into the country. And it looks like July, so right now Kenya has opened to local travel. They're opening some borders across. I expect that August more will open, but they're going to take a wait and see kind of 3 week, 2 to 3 week at a time in terms of allowing additional travel, see what the impact is, and then decide to open up to guests from additional countries. So they're really taking step by step. And because every country is taking a little bit different approach, that's why this document and this living resource that Gerald has talked about is so important for our travel partners to have access to.
Great. Thank you. And Gerald, a question for you. You didn't mention the Tokyo Olympics. What do you foresee happening for next year?
I mean, they're being rescheduled for July 2021. I think you've asked a good leading question because, Japan has, managed the virus very well, and there was a great push in our region for Japan to be one of the first countries to open. Now, they're taking a very conservative approach because of the Olympics. They're very leery about, I think, opening this year because everything is focusing on the Olympics. To have it canceled again next year would be, just devastating for them. So, the government is really focusing resources, on the Olympics themselves, and we are receiving, inquiries again for the Olympics next year, and they basically shadow the same dates. I think it's 1 day difference, July 25th to August 10th. But as of now, it's a go. We are accepting inquiries, and I think the reason that Japan is being very conservative about reopening this year is because they really want to make sure everything is in order in terms of COVID and other issues because of the Olympics. I mean, they really are making that the focus of 2021. Travel to the country will be the Olympics. So definitely, I mean, it's going forward as we speak.
Thank you.
I mean, and I have to be honest. I mean, I've also heard they're so concerned about this. They have debated whether or not they should limit the number of people that actually go to attend different events in case there's still COVID, circulating around the world next year. I mean, they are very looking at many different sort of contingency plans about the staging of the Olympics.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much again, Kim and Gerald. I really appreciate
thank you,
both taking
Kareem,
the
and thank you for the people who took the time to listen in. And, we're all excited. I mean, travel is in all our blood, and we love travel. And, and this may sound cliche, but for me, travel is just this wonderful education for people from every corner of the earth. So we really need to start traveling again.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do. We do. Well, Gerald, you get to bed because it's very
I
late in Hong Kong right now.
Well, anything for you, Kareem and Kim, and thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much. And to everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and
Yes,
hopefully we'll all be visiting these wonderful destinations again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kareem.
Thank you,
Bye.
Kareem. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.